You're at my mercy. Don't say it like that.
I'm on your podcast.
Don't say it like that. Hey, well, thanks for being here again. My name is Kevin Delgado. Welcome back to the Why Not Me podcast. And here we go. Let's have some fun. Before we get started today, I would like to invite my guest today, Josiah, to open us with a short prayer.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin. Lord Jesus, give you praise, give you thanks. Thank you for fellowship. Thank you for wisdom. And we pray this time would be fruitful. Amen.
Amen. Amen. All right. So last time we talked, man, we got to know some incredible things about you. And we got to know a little bit about the author, Josiah, not the coffee man, Josiah, and how you went through this life in the mountains and Alaska and figuring out who you are being called to be. And there was this moment where you're like, I'm going to become a man on my own and find my faith and my calling. And then you come back with this desire to launch people and be an author through businesses. And here we are now, man. So like, how did you find yourself in a place where Local Line became a reality? Like, what happened?
So how did Local Line become a reality? So I was at a children's home, Crossner Home for Children, working with my wife, and we had been there for 6 years. And in the time off, we would go, I started a hood cleaning business. So I would work for a week on and a week off at that job. So on my weeks off, I started a business out of a trailer with my two brothers. We called it Fireproof It, and we went around and cleaned flammable grease out of restaurant hoods.
Wow.
And so it was dirty jobs. It was on dirty jobs. And that process of starting that side hustle business, light bulb went off in my mind of like, oh, there's other ways to make money other than getting a job, other than W-2. It just hadn't occurred to me prior to that possibility. So then that caused me to really understand, oh, there's other ways to make money. So then fast forward, looking for a solution for a job for the high country, for a way of transitioning for my family, I came up with Local Line and just went into business full time instead of going and find another job.
Hold up. You were cleaning kitchen hoods.
Cleaning kitchen hoods. Yeah, that's really the foundation of Local Line was cleaning hoods. So it was flammable, dirty grease. I'd go out at night, and so in the high country at the time there was nobody that was a hood cleaner. Winters are hard here. You got to get on the roof at night with a hot water pressure washer, water everywhere, and so basically they would call up, but it's required by law because it's flammable, so it's like a fire issue. So you've got to get it cleaned out. But so all the restaurants were relying on companies out like Winston-Salem, and they would come up and get it done for them because there was nobody up here that was doing that. So I started providing that service. Next thing you know, I was doing like 90% of the local restaurants.
What?
And
yeah, why not me? Why not clean? That's bizarre. So I guess I was well, that's really interesting. I have so many questions now about you got started. You said, first of all, you said, I see a need. I could do that. Mm-hmm. Let's meet the need. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to assume you exercise a lot of things from the moment that you decided to meet that need to the moment you find yourself successful meeting that need that I'm so curious about. That's pretty radical. I don't know many people that would see a problem like that and approach their future and their family's financial stability and success like that, where it's like, hey, instead of me going and find this job that I think is a perfect fit for me and I'm going to go to the corporate world, you're like, no, let me just find the value that you were talking about. Let me find the value and create the value. Mm-hmm. And what a better way to start. That's incredible.
Yeah, I think especially as a young guy, being willing to do what other people weren't willing to do is what made my brothers and I successful in that. So it was like we did the job. It wasn't the sexy, impactful, amazing job. It was the thing that was like actually not desirable, but the willingness to do that created opportunity because there's not as much competition, right? But basically, it was not really competition. Our competition was in Winston-Salem, so we just had to show up, work hard, and execute it. Be willing to do that work, and it created the opportunity. So that was for me. That was the learning experience. So that became like the foundation of like, oh, this is where I cut my teeth in business. Began to understand how to do business and to think about things differently because I didn't have a business degree. I didn't have a business background, and so a lot of the things I learned came from experience, and that was the foundation. So Local Line wouldn't have happened if I hadn't done that first.
I want to highlight one thing that you just breezed by like it was normal. You said that it wasn't about the job being this sexy, attractive, glamorous job. You said that we decided to do something exceptionally that other people are not willing to do. And I think that idea of, okay, if I want to get to where I want to get to, whatever my calling is, I have to be willing to do something that people have not done before or that I have not done before. That is like the epitome of why not me that you embodied in that first step. How old were you?
Oh, how old was I? Well, let's see. I got to think about that for a minute. I was 25 or 26.
26-year-old man said, okay, well, you know what? It's not glamorous, but it could provide a future. And you know what? Why not me? Who else is going to do this? And you decided to be disciplined, accountable, hardworking. You were proud of providing a good product. I'm sure you didn't go out there and do a sloppy job. That is like rich life lessons, man. Tell me more, like looking back on that experience of cleaning hoods, what did you take from that helped you launch Local Line successfully?
Well, a couple things. One is the knowledge about business. So the idea that we could launch a company and provide a service and make money. So that was lesson one. Two was like when I went to go get the loan with my brothers and I, when we went to go get the loan, it was $15,000 we needed between the three of us. So, and that was for a trailer and for a hot water pressure washer, and we got denied. So there was even with all three of us trying to get a $15,000 loan, we couldn't get it. And so we actually went to my brother's friend, who was a doctor, and he loaned us the money. We got up and going, and then we went back to the bank and were able to get it. Once we had clients, we were able to get the loan a second go round. But so that being said, like how did it help me get Local Line going is track record. I mean, you can't just when I went to the bank for Local Line for a loan, they believed in me in a different way than they had the first time. Because I had paid off a loan, I had been faithful, I had gotten it done. Like we were, at that point so there was that foundation of like just kind of one thing, stepping stones, basically. Like it was like we built something, and then because we had built something, we were able to use it to build something else. So it was the experience, the knowledge, but it was also the work, like the track record. And so that's not something I knew. It was just something we built.
That's incredible, and I'm just thinking about how I can benefit from that, just from hearing that little bit of wisdom. And what's even more crazy to me, I'm just imagining you and your brothers sitting in a room, like, we could probably make this work. We can do this. Let's go to the bank and get a loan. And you had this belief in yourselves that loan would be no problem to pay back, and you would make money to cover that and some. Where I think so many times as humans, we prioritize safety and comfort over our goals. And yeah, you saw that as a stepping stone, but before you saw that as a stepping stone, I'd venture to guess that you saw that as livelihood. Like, I need this to survive and provide.
It was exciting. I mean, yes, it was a dirty job. Yes, it was hood cleanings. But it was also exciting to think, oh, we're going to go and try to start a company. I mean, like, it's just like that thought for the first time ever in life is an exciting thought. And it was helpful that we were not trying to simultaneously like have this huge impact, do this really amazing thing that was like too big. Like we picked something that was like doable for us where we were in life, or with the knowledge we had. And so that was important, you know, because we were able to get a success early through doing the hard job. But it was also exciting to go, it's like there's two things. There's the business that you're doing, hood cleaning, you know, selling wine and chocolate, selling coffee, whatever your business is. But there's also like the business, the fact that you're running a company, right? So whatever you're doing, there's also just the simple business skills that are behind it. And that was exciting to me. Like and actually I kind of discovered that about myself. Like, oh, this is exciting to me, building a business, whatever it is. Yes, I'm doing the hard work, but what I'm really doing is entrepreneurship on a small scale, but it was still that. And that made me come alive, and I enjoyed it. And so it also gave us the confidence to jump in with the coffee shop later, and to kind of go to leave our jobs and to go full in. So that's what Local Line represented, was the moment where it's like, you know what, we're going to not have a job anymore. We're going to be fully self-employed. We're going to just go into business, and that's all we're going to do. And that was the Local Line moment, was that transition. So that was exciting as well, you know, doubling down and really taking that risk. That was scarier. We did have a mortgage, a 2-year-old, you know, so it was scarier, more on the line. But
right, but I think that, you know, what you just outlined, this you almost discovered, like, okay, these lessons you took from Alaska and from your upbringing about what kind of man you want to be and what kind of impact you want to have, and this fearlessness and it's almost a grit and this desire to, like, I'm not going to fail. I may fall short, I may make a mistake, but I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to fail. You carried that into this hood cleaning business where you were being undeniable and believing in yourself. You were trusting, like, this is what I'm going to do. We can do this. We have the ability to do it. The door's wide open. There's a need to be met. Let me add the value and meet it. And then when you get to the point of that successful, you're looking at yourself a whole different way. So when you look in a mirror now, you see yourself differently. You see yourself as this capable entrepreneur. You're excited about it. Like, I can do this, therefore I will. And I'm imagining the moment that your brain just kind of unlocked a little bit and the blinders came off, and you're like, oh, I see it. I see the potential. I see the world. Like, you see the world probably as a canvas. Like, let's just build stuff. You know, it's creative. It's fun. It's amazing. And possibility is endless. And I think that's incredible. And you might even see that as like, this is normal. This is what other humans think. Like, it's not. I think other humans, and I find myself in this space all the time, we are paralyzed by what it takes to get started. We are paralyzed by what you risk to get started. You know, in my background in sports, it was never an issue for me to get started working hard to gain a new skill or to rise to a new level of competition. But now you're talking about life. Like, if I fail here, I don't just have a bad game. I'm frustrated. I'm sad. My teams are mad at me. My coaches are mad at me, and I got to get better. Like, if I fail at this, my life has changed. And then bouncing back from that is difficult. And I'm amazed at the fact that you just went from a hood business to say, you know what, this is what I'm called to do. Let's go all in on starting this. And it's going to be hard work. We're going to meet this need. We're going to provide the hard work. We're going to succeed, and just wait. Wait to see what God has in store. That is wild.
I think Kevin, that there's a couple things about that moment of your mind unlocking and realizing there's potential inside of you or potential around you for opportunity that you can go and create and add that value. I think one of the pieces of that that's really helpful is humility. So I say that because, like, one, the first job that I did was a humble job. And that, I don't know that if I had picked something that didn't have that humility aspect, if I would have been successful. You know, I didn't have in all honesty, I didn't have the business skills at that time in life. I had the work ethic, but I didn't have the business skills. And so I had to learn them somewhere. And if I had picked something that was more competitive, I may not have had the same level of success. And that might have not have been as empowering. So one, it was actually technically a humble position, right? Mm-hmm. Which was really good for me. But also, there is a risk to it. It's like, you might fail. Like when we went full on self-employed. We're not going to have a job anymore. We made this shift. Me and my wife sit down and I say to her, what if this doesn't work? What if we fail? Like, we don't know what's going to happen when we walk through this door, when we make this decision. Like, failure is one of the possibilities. Like, a reality of risk is that sometimes things don't work. And so are we okay with that? Are we okay walking through a failure? Are we going to be okay in our marriage? Are we willing to walk through a failure? And basically, that's humbling, because you don't know that you're going to be successful when you set out on this or that. And so I think it's like, in that sense, it was a character trait of like, yeah, we are willing to be walk through a failure in front of our town, in front of our community, if that's what happens. It's like, that's going to be okay. We're going to be okay with each other. We're going to be okay with our lives, and we're willing to take that risk. And so I think humility is a requirement for starting out. Probably it's a requirement for continuing on, but definitely in the space you're talking about of how do you unlock this part of your mind to see more potential? Ironically, it's not just about like, oh, I can go do all these great things. It's really about being humble and real about like, I'm going to go on this journey, and I'm going to learn the lessons that I need to learn along the way.
Okay. Lessons meaning through mistakes and possible failures.
Through mistakes, through failures, through willing to do things that are like value for others, even if they're like not necessarily what is so great for you, like basically a willingness to serve and create real value at the beginning created opportunity. And so I just think that's kind of like an attribute that is worth embracing, especially if you're starting out. Like, let's be real. You're starting out, you're trying something new. You're not going to be humble about it. You're going to come in with all this pride and think you know better. It's not going to go so well, right? But if you come into it ready to learn, ready to work hard, ready to add value, I mean, honestly, humans can learn. You can learn.
Well, I think what I'm hearing you say, and what I've kind of been preaching, is not that we can learn, is that learning is a must. Learning is a must, and failure is not a must, but it's a guarantee that you're going to experience failure at some point in life. That's a guarantee, and truly, what makes someone say why not me versus say that could never be me. I believe it, and part of it is what you're talking about, is the humility to say I can fail, I will likely fail, and yet I will persevere until those doors closed by the Lord. I will persevere, and I think that is powerful. To hear riddled through your entire story so far, that at the beginning of it was this gap. You recognize a gap. There is this need. I think I could do that. I'm not too high for this dirty work. I'm not too low for this high work. I can do it. Why not? It's just another human doing it. What's different between them and myself? And then you commit to it and you say, I'm likely going to fail. But you know what? I'm not going to quit because I'm going to learn. And I think that posture of seeing yourself as a human and seeing other success stories as just humans really makes it easy to jump into easier to jump into your dreams, not easy. And then the other part of like seeing failure as it's going to happen and it's going to make me better is, in my mind, what's key to success. Like if you can't face a failure and say, all right, that sucks. Now what did I learn from that? How to move forward from that? Then you will be stuck. Is that what you're saying? Do you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Man,
agree,
that's incredible. Okay, so you got Local Lion launched, and you're ready to go. Now tell me, how did you ever imagine that you'd be where you are now with Local Lion Venture, podcasting, author of businesses? I'm sure you got some books in there somewhere in the future. Like, you got a lot going on.
So no, I didn't know where the journey was going to take me. I mean, it has been exciting, and I'm grateful, thrilled to see what God's doing. One of my favorite verses, we opened in prayer. One of my favorite verses is, everything we have accomplished, the Lord has done for us. And I feel like you work hard and you put a lot in, but you also, receive and are grateful for what comes your way, what God provides. So Local Line was that initial season was really difficult really hard starting out. I think probably it was kind of failing at the beginning, but we found a way, and it began to grow, and I think we kind of walked it into success, and then acquired the building, acquired commercial real estate. That kind of set me up to. That was also a lesson in itself, like about real estate and kind of like thinking about business in bigger terms. And from there, transitioned to more other kinds of investments. So got involved with like I'm an LP on Pagosa Springs in Colorado, and some real estate and deals in Texas, and just kind of like doing some bigger stuff and learning to think about the world in a bigger way. So that's been really exciting. And then, of course, adding more businesses in Boone, the venture. We had an online company for a little while called the Captain's Coffee. So we ran that company. We bought it and sold it. And yeah, so just different stuff along the way, different small businesses, different lessons learned. And it's been an adventure, and I'm super grateful.
What when you were going through Local Line, what was the scariest failure you had that you could say?
Well, so there's two kinds of failures that I'd say I walked through. The scariest one is actually oddly the second. I think I almost blew it there. But the first one was really just not making enough. Like it was too much work, and I was hood cleaning still. So I had my first business. We weren't making enough at Local Lion at first, so I would go out and hood clean at night. But then donuts starts at 3 in the morning. So I mean, there was times I would like clean a hood, pull into the parking lot, pull my seat back, sleep for like a few hours, maybe get up, start making donuts, and just ridiculous amounts of work, like just full on. It's just kind of too much. And then I started to get. We had this moment where we were basically failing as a company. Like I took my wife to a really nice dinner, and I said, "Hey, get whatever, just splurge. We may not be eating out for a long time. This isn't working." But soon after that, it started to grow. The business started to grow, and I sold Fireproof It. In the middle of there, though, I was also finishing my master's degree, so I was also writing a thesis. So it was just too much. It just kind of crushed me. So that was a kind of failure. Like there was no life balance. It was not healthy. It was a kind of failure. Like if I had walked away at some of those points and said that failed, I think that would have been kind of true. But we persevered through it, and, found success in the future where it started to grow. We were able to like finish the master's degree, sell the first company, and kind of like start to move forward. And then acquired the online company, which was a better fit, and just started to have life balance. And then my second failure was I started to kind of just be hard-hearted and proud and burned out. So I just kind of like got into like not a great mental space. If we were talking about humility earlier, like I think I kind of lost some of that and lost a sense of vision. And so that's probably the scarier place to be. It's not as hard, but it's scarier because you can almost deceive yourself and not know. So anyway, I kind of had to deal with my stuff, and basically kind of, I don't know, repent, get humble. Like remember that God was the one leading my path, and that I had a responsibility to Him, to my wife, to others, and just to walk in love and purpose. And so that kind of like I got a fresh vision basically out of all that, got burned out, and then got, instead of settling or getting proud or maybe staying in my pride, like I think I got humble again and got a fresh vision, and that was so good for me. And then a lot came out of that. That's where I developed my Conquer Mountain ideas. That was right around that time. This was 2018, where I was really just taking stock of my life and what I was doing and what I valued, and I made the decision to stay in business. I decided I loved the marketplace, but that I wanted it to be full of meaning, and I wanted to serve other people, and I wanted to just continue to see success in my own life and in others' lives. And so I called it Conquer Mountain, and I wrote down a vision, and that's what I've been doing since.
That's awesome. Now, I have 1,000 questions about that. But before I get there, I wanted to ask you, what was that fresh? So you said you got to basically this place where you were at your end, at the end of you, and something happened at that point that renewed you. Okay, God intervened and renewed you, but what did that renewal look like? Do you mind if I ask that?
Yeah, I mean, it was a big deal. It was so. I mean, I've got stories, Kevin, that I've never told you that are big stories, and they're related to when you ask that question, like, because this is very much like my spiritual journey is what you're asking about right there, and so I don't know how to answer that simply, to be honest. But the simplest way I could say it is I stopped what I was doing. I called a few friends, and I said, guys, I need to repent. My heart is hard. I've gotten proud, and I remember what God has done for me, and I want to walk in that place. And so I started out there, but it turned into like 3 weeks of pressing in very intentionally. And in that time, I walked out of that time with like 40 pages I had written down, a vision of what I wanted to do with my life. And it was more dramatic than I typically ever experience, like everything that was just happening in my mind, heart. And so I just came out of there with like fresh vision. And I would say I was also really clear that I knew I wanted to build my life, my businesses, my work. I wanted my work to be founded on loving God with all your heart, mind, soul, and strength. And I was like, this is a sure foundation. It's eternal foundation, and it's what I want to do with my life. And so it's like, but practically, how do I take my work, my job, and found it on this and endeavor in this way? Because like me going my own way is just not going to be fruitful. But so
that is incredibly powerful. That theme of humility coming back in, and I think I have some ways to summarize that, because what you just told me was that you found yourself in a place where you were it was getting to a certain point where you were feeling extra good about yourself, and maybe you weren't giving like the real reason why you're doing what you're doing the glory or the impact or the power it needs, right? And then you stop and you say, wait a minute, I'm here for the people. I'm here for the impact. I'm here for the difference. And I think that's important to talk about, because in our Why Not Me journey, whatever that is we're pursuing, our dream, our goal, it goes from a place of like this noble, humble, selfless goal. I want to go make a difference. I want to make an impact. I want to empower these people. And it can quickly become this thing about, oh, I did all this. Look at me. I am this great person. And I don't think you were doing that. But I think that gives me a great opportunity to talk about that even through success, it's important that we keep in perspective why we are doing what we're doing. You know, for you, I believe what you're doing is so you can enhance people's lives, so you can enhance the community you're in, and do that by sharing the wisdom and the truth of God. The same wisdom and truth that changed your life. And I could see that in your life now. I can see that in your life. I can see it in your businesses. I can see it in your companies. I can see it in who you are every day. And I am, first of all, so grateful that you are here. So grateful we crossed paths. And I'm so grateful for the wisdom that you just shared with us, because that right there is important to hear in real world. Hey, keep your focus, your perspective on the right things in all levels of success. And I'd even say, maybe you tell me, as you're growing, continue to grow your perspective or expand your perspective on how big you can make an impact. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's so beautiful how life is. Like we're alive, and like living things grow. And I think our work is like there's this part of working, endeavoring where you might not realize it, but you're putting seeds in the ground. I mean, like, what's the initial way that we think about work, like humanity? It's like in the garden, right? Like, you put a seed in the ground, what's it going to do? It's going to grow. Like, it's just what happens. Yes, some might fail, but like overall, it's going to grow. And so when we're doing something, we're sowing something. What we're doing is we're growing. And it's not just like, I think when I made the decision to do venture, so when I shifted from Local Lion, and I was on the back porch with my friend, we were having a beer, we were talking, and he was saying, I was like, I just don't know. I've got this opportunity, but this is in 2020, and like COVID had just happened, and like it's like, man, what's the marketplace? It's kind of this, that, and should I do it? And he said, Josiah, I hear the things you talk about, and if you don't do this, how else do you think you're going to grow? And I said, he goes, and I don't just mean financially. He goes, what other way do you think you're going to grow as a person if you don't do something like this? And it was like, in that moment, I had already decided. When he said that, I was like, oh, of course I'm doing venture. I do want to grow. I do want to be on this journey of development as a person, of growing in my character, of like taking risks. And like, I don't want to look back at my life and be like, I had these big ideas, these big doors, and I never explored them. Like, I don't know if it's going to work or not going to work, but that's not even really the whole point. The whole point is like, are we going to be on the kind of people who really see what happens when we take our time and our talent and our energy and we invest it, and we invest into others, and we like participate and see where we go. I mean, to me, that's kind of how we met, is like, yeah, we've got these ideas. What's it going to be? I don't know, but let's collaborate and let's go on the journey together, and let's just see what happens. And so, yeah, growing is living.
And growth should be the goal. Wow. I'm pumped. Dude, that was inspiring.
Good.
Holy cow. Growth is a goal. The goal is the garden. You know, you plant the seed, you till the soil, you break it up, you go through pain, and you grow. And guess what you do next season? You clear it all out, you till it again, you see, where do I need to grow now? Wow, that is powerful. Why not you? Why not you? And to whoever that friend was, praise God for them. That's incredible. Hey, how'd you know when you were like, okay, I am successful? Like, when was that moment? What was that marker for you?
So, I mean, that's an interesting question, actually, to think about. You know, it kind of depends on your definition of success. I think the first time I started to be able to breathe easier was a few years into Local Lion. It took a while for me to kind of get out of, because I was working a ton, but my wife was also working a ton. And so then we have our second child. She's able to stay home, but it didn't take the workload off of me. Like, we were working less, but I was working just as much, you know? And then like, and she was working just as much, just at home with the new babies. And like, I wasn't able to be there for her like I should have been. So that, you know, it's like, but starting to succeed, at least she can be home with them like she wanted to be. And then we get to the point where, okay, now we're getting into life balance. It's a few years in. So it's kind of like we made this big jump into business. And then several years later, it's like we can actually take a vacation. We can actually have a normal work week. You know, that was pretty big. That was probably the first time I noticed the business started to succeed a little before that. Like, I saw the business start to kind of like work. And then over time that starts to translate into like me starting to have a little bit of balance. But then it really was like a slow process of like, the next thing was really learning how to let go and like hand responsibility to others. Because at first it was like, it got to this point where everything depended on me. Like, I would run around and do everything, and I would hire help to help me do everything. But then over time I transitioned to like taking responsibilities and handing them to somebody else and raising them up or seeing them rise up to take that responsibility on. Well, so that's a completely different process. And it means letting go and trusting them, because it's not you doing it. So it's like, but that was big. And learning how to do that really brought me into a new place in my thinking. But for me, when did I feel successful? It's funny. It's the little things that like I couldn't afford when I was a kid or whatever. So it's like bunches of frozen blueberries and milk or something. That's like blueberries was a treat, you know, and so like it was just like these treats that like felt unaffordable, and they're silly things, but it's like when I can ever have those things, you know, it's like those felt like success to me. These little things that felt unaffordable to me when I was a kid, and then all of a sudden they're like easy to get, and I can just enjoy them.
So now I know when I see you rolling around with a bucket of blueberries and some milk, man, you are living your best life.
Living my best life, yeah.
That is so
yeah, if I could have that snack at the end of the day just because I want it.
You know, it sounds to me like this thread of humility has been so pivotal in your life, because at the last part you said, you know, I reached success when I felt balance, when I saw the business being self-sustainable and almost autonomous, where I didn't need to push every button. And it took trust, intentionality, but humility to say, hey, I'm trusting you all to handle this and add your own flavor and help this grow and expand in alignment with what I set in motion. That's really cool. And you kind of mentioned this, but I want to hear, so that, okay, you've done all this, you've learned incredible lessons, you had that friend who told you, go and start venture, you're never going to grow without it. So what now? You mentioned Conquer Your Mountain. Tell me about that.
So Conquer Mountain is a vision for using the marketplace platform, the business foundation that we have, in order to help others conquer their mountain. So, you know, it's interesting. We talk about humility, and I don't mean to say that like, oh, I'm so humble. I mean to say that like the way that I would connect humility to this journey is it's knowing the truth of who you are. This is a really big deal. To say that you're less than who you are is pride. You're telling God that you know better than the gift he put in you. To think you're more than who you are is also pride, right? But like to be like, no, this is who I am. Wait, I didn't create myself. You didn't create yourself. We didn't choose, you know, like here we are. We have these dreams, we have these things, we have these gifts, like living into it. The truth of who we are is humility. Like it's just the humility and truth and identity are so related. And like learning to walk in the truth of who we are, our true identity. This is so exciting. This is freedom. And humility is kind of like a doorway into that, right? Like that we all need. And so it's more about like the truth of who we are as people and the gifts that are in us and unlocking this and like being a part of like other people realizing their gifts. What's their, like, I believe that everybody is created for a purpose, on purpose. And it's like, if we're going to live with our whole heart, loving God with our whole heart, mind, soul, and strength, that means that we're going to step into our purpose. That means that the things that we're created to do, we're going to do them, right? And so, but you know what we need if we're going to accomplish those things that are in us? We need wisdom. We need each other. We need knowledge. We need understanding, right? There's things we need. And so like equipping people with the wisdom, with the skills to conquer their mountain, with the like, okay, humility is wisdom. It unlocks the truth of who you are. Now what in the truth of who you are, you can see your purpose. Your purpose, you need to be resourced in order to take those steps. How do you take that first step? How do you take that second step? Do you have a vision for where you're going? Right? So this kind of thinking is conquer your mountain. It's like, I want to be there for you to conquer your mountain. I want my as the older I get, the more we build, the more we grow. It's like, what are we growing into? A resource for you to understand who you are and what you're called to do and how you can accomplish it. How can we help you accomplish it? How can Why Not Me as a podcast? That's why we connected. Like when you listen to Why Not Me as a podcast, you should be strengthened in who you are as your person in your journey. And that's why we connected around this idea. So Conquer Mountain, that's what it is for me, is this vision, this plan of how can we be inviting people into this amazing story of the adventure of discovering who they are and what they can accomplish. And so basically that is the meaning in what I want to do when I go to work.
All right, man. Conquer Your Mountain. That is an incredible, incredible description of what you're doing, man. And I just want to say and call out how much of a meaningful thing this is. Part of the reason why I set out to start Why Not Me was that I saw this gap. I saw this gap in people and, and their self-belief to conquer their mountain, to say, why not me, about their goals. And when I would dig into people like, what are you scared about or what's going on? It was like these key things that they were not unlocking in themselves. It was the way they looked at themselves and saw themselves. It was that beautiful description of humility that you talked about. And I thank you for that description of humility, because I've been the person who says humility is like basically taking pride in saying, no, I'm less than. And the way that you just painted that idea of humility, that was beautiful, saying that it's humility to know that you were created by God intentionally. And the humility is submitting and say, God, you made me this way, and I trust you made me this way. Rather than saying, oh no, God, guys, don't look at me. Like that's such an interesting approach. So that's beautiful. But I think that, throughout my life, competitively as an athlete and as a professional developing people in the workplace, in the organization, it is that certain people haven't been privy to or haven't been forced to unlock these things like accountability, humility, the ability to see a gap and meet a need, the ability to say, why not me? Like that stuff is not normal or natural. And so similar to you, I set out to do why not me to kind of help push people into seeing themselves more like God sees them, and as this person who's capable. So I think that's incredible, man. I think you are going to change lives to conquer your mountain. I can't wait to see all the mountains that are conquered. I can't wait to conquer my mountain. This is dope, man. That is so incredible. So how does conquer your mountain operationalize? I don't know. Stay tuned for next episode to find out. We'll talk more about that. Hey, Josiah, this has been incredibly fruitful, and I want to thank you for your obedience, man. You live a life of intention and a life of impact and a life of making the relationship be the first thing on your mind. And we need more people like you. And before we wrap up, man, what do you want to leave with the folks for this episode?
Hey, be encouraged. Be encouraged. I mean, there is gifting inside of you, and there's purpose inside of you, and it may require you to do the hard thing, the humble thing. I don't know what the path in front of you has, hood cleaning or something like it, but stick with it. God's faithfulness is going to be right there to unlock it. So
you heard it. You heard it. Believe in yourself. Know that you have these things inside of you, and know that God made you with a purpose. Why not me? Go conquer your mountain. Peace. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Why Not Me podcast. I hope this episode inspired you and challenged you, and it was something you needed to hear. And if it was, please share it with somebody, a coworker, a friend, a family member, a significant other. You never know. They could be just one conversation away from experiencing real breakthrough. If you don't already follow or subscribe, please do so on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, and Spotify. And remember, the growth you want, the life you want, the impact you want, all of that can change by asking one question: why not me? I'll see you next episode.